Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I've got a treat for you. Today we're going to do brisket on the Weber kettle. That's right, brisket on the Weber kettle. I get told a lot from a lot of people that they want to learn how to do brisket, but they don't have an offset smoker. You don't need one. You can do it on a Weber kettle. And so that's what I'm going to show you guys how to do today right here on the DawgfathasBBQ YouTube channel. That's right guys, today we got us a 12.6 pound USDA prime brisket from our local Costco. We're going to go ahead and get this thing trimmed up. We're going to get it seasoned with some Suckle Busters SPG and some 1836 beef rub, and we're going to get it on our Weber kettle. So let's get our Weber kettle fired up and let's get this cook going. Let's get it. Alright guys, so we're here at the grill. We got our regular standard kettle, and what I'm going to be using today to do this long cook is going to be called a slow and sear. So the way this thing works is you put your charcoal in on this side and you put your moisture or your water in on this side, and that's how this thing works, and it just gets placed down inside the grill just like this. And I know you're probably thinking, well, what if we don't have a slow and sear? Well, that's fine. You probably have a couple of baskets like this that come with your Weber kettle, which you can stick over here on the side too and put charcoal in. So the same principles that you see that I'm going to do here as I set this thing up is going to be the same for those little baskets, except you won't have the water trough, so you can actually add a water pan in here or what have you. But I'm going to go ahead and get this charcoal set up. I've got a small chimney set up over here, and we're going to get that dumped in, and let's get this thing lit up. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some hot water into my water trough here. And this again is going to provide our moisture for our cooking chamber. So today I'm going to be using some B&B competition oak charcoal. Feel free to use whatever charcoal you'd like, but this is what I have and this is what I like to use. And so what I do is I just stack this charcoal in here and pretty much move it over to one side. So our lit charcoal that we've got burning down here is going to be dumped in right here, and then you get it the snake method. It's just basically going to burn across. So let's get our lit charcoal put in here and we'll finish getting this grill lit up. And that's all it's really going to take. It's not going to take us a whole lot of charcoal to get this thing going. But I'm just securing it over into this corner so it can burn across, breaking down whatever can be broken down a little bit. And what I'm going to do is add my wood. Now today I'm using hickory wood chunks because that's what I like. You know, I've got some on hand, so I'm going to use it. So you feel free to use whatever wood you have, but we're going to put some hickory chunks in here. Pull this out of the way. Okay, pro tip here guys. When you're cooking like this, it's always an easier cleanup if you take a pan and put it in here underneath where your brisket's going to be. So that'll help us clean up the grill a lot easier later. So again, pro tip, do it if you feel like it. If you don't, don't. So we're going to put our cooking rack in. Alright guys, so now that we got our charcoal on, we've got our wood on, we're going to go ahead and get our lid on, and this is going to be what's going to make this an indirect cooker. When you put your lid on, you want your vent holes to be opposite of your side where your heat source or your charcoal and wood is. So when we put this top on our grill, we're going to put it this way. We've got our vent holes away from it, which makes that heat come up and across and out. So that's how you get that indirect cooking method onto your brisket. So we're going to leave this top here. We're going to let this thing come up to temp and we'll get this brisket on. If you're curious about the board that I'm using here, I'm using a Custom Cutting Boards R Us brisket board. This is what I use to trim my briskets on. It's a big board that can hold a whole brisket. It's got a trough on the end so it catches all the juices, so we're good. So I'm going to go ahead and start working on getting this brisket trimmed. You know, if you guys have been around on the channel, you know how I kind of trim my briskets, but for those of you that don't, if you take the time to look up in that corner towards the end of the video, I'm going to put a card up there that's going to link you to the video of how I trim my brisket. So let me get this brisket trimmed and I'll bring you guys back in a minute. Alright guys, as you can see, we've got our brisket trimmed, and now it's going to be time to go ahead and get this thing seasoned up. And so for me today, I'm going to be using rubs on this brisket that I haven't done on a brisket before, so hey, let's try it out. So we're going to be using suckle busters, and we've got the SPG, guys. So we're going to put some SPG on here. That's going to be our first coat. And then our second coat's going to be another Suckle Busters 1836. So we're going to use Suckle Busters SPG and a Suckle Busters 1836 on this brisket today. Again, you always want to make sure you press the rub in, guys. Never ever rub it around, because then you get uneven placement of your rub on your meat. So we're just pressing it in. And we'll flip it over, and we'll get the fat cap side. Alright guys, so hey, we've got our brisket all rubbed. We got the Weber kettle lit. Let's go ahead and get this brisket on, get this cook going, alright? I'll meet you at the grill. Alright guys, we're back at the grill, as you can see. Again, we got our lit charcoal on this side here that's going to kind of snake across our slow and sear here. We're going to be putting our brisket on right here. So let's get this brisket on. So here we've got the brisket, we've got fat cap up. Putting it right across our retaining pan here. I'm cooking fat cap up because I'm expecting the heat to radiate across the top of the dome and across and out. So my heat source is going to be coming more from the top here, guys. So you always want your fat cap to be between your meat and your heat source. So that's why I'm cooking fat cap up. So we got our brisket on, we've got our water in our water trough, we've got our charcoal and our wood on. We're going to go ahead and get the lid on this thing, and we're going to let it roll. Alright gang, hey, we're at our 2-hour checkpoint right now, so we're going to take a look at this brisket we got rolling over here on the Weber kettle. What are we going to look for? Well, we're going to look for to see, hey, how fast is this brisket cooking? If it's cooking too slow, it's going to have kind of a really good raw look to it still. If it's cooking too fast, you're going to see some color changes where on the edges it might look a little crispy and dry, almost like it's trying to burn on us, and we don't want that. So we'll control our temperature with our dampers if that happens. If we see some dryness on the edges of the brisket, we're going to go ahead and address that with spritzing with water. I'm not going to use any ACV or apple juice today. We're just going to use straight water. Also, another thing you're going to look for is you're going to look for it pooling. Sometimes you have a brisket that'll push out moisture, and the brisket might be sitting in such a way that you have pooling where all that juices collect, where all those juices collect on top of the brisket. Well, we don't want that. We want those juices to run away. So if that happens, we'll take some foil or something and crumple it up and set that brisket to get that juice to get those juices running off the brisket. So let's take a look at this brisket and let's see what we got going on. All right, let's go. Okay, so guys, what I noticed right away when I take the lid off here is I can see that we are cooking a little fast here on the edges. Here on this edge, as well as here is this edge. We're still looking a little raw here on this edge. Before we really get a good spritz on this thing, I want to make sure my bark is set, so I take my fingernail and scrape there, and yeah, some of the pepper is moving around, but the rest of it looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and spritz it lightly in the center, and we'll spritz it a little bit more on the edges there, just to make sure we keep a good moisture going on. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to take this brisket and we're going to turn it around so we can get a good even cook on it. So now we got this brisket turned around, guys, and man, we're going to close it up and let it keep going. Because it seemed like it was cooking a little fast, I'm going to close down the damper just a little bit more here, and I'll bring you back in a while. Alright guys, we're back, and we're about 4 hours into this cook here. We got this brisket rolling away on this Weber kettle. So we're going to go ahead and take a look. What are we going to do at this point? Well, at this point, we're going to go ahead and take a temperature check. Now remember that brisket and really any cuts of meat that you smoke, they're going to take on smoke flavor up until about 140 degrees, and you're probably going to have all the smoke flavor you can get into that meat at that point. So we have to decide, do we want to keep it going on the pit the way it is unwrapped, or do we want to go ahead and wrap it, because we're going to get into what's called the thermal stall. So we're we're gonna actually wrap ours in butcher paper if we're at that point. So we're gonna check the internal temperature. If we're at 140 or so, if we're looking good, if the color is where I think we're good to go, we'll go ahead and get it wrapped. All right, so let's get the lid off of this Weber kettle. Let's take a look at this brisket. All right, guys, so we got the lid off here on this Weber kettle here, and we got our brisket, and we can see a couple of things here. Okay, we can see that we're still kind of wetting through here, and we can see we got this pooling. Now this is the pooling that I was talking about before, and when I pulled the lid off before, I knew this was gonna pool, but I purposely didn't go ahead and put anything under it because I wanted you guys to see what it looks like when this happens. So this is what happens, and this is what I'm talking about when you say you're pooling. Now, to prevent that from happening, you get a good piece of aluminum foil like this, and you basically prop it underneath your brisket to where the juices will run off into your catch pan down underneath. So that's what I wanted to show you guys there. I've got some good color here. I like the darkness of the color here and around the edges here. Not too bad. We're at that point that we could actually wrap it, or we could let it keep going. But before we do that, we're going to go ahead and take a temp check. So I've got my trusty thermal pin. We're going to go ahead and take a look, and we're at 170 degrees, guys. 170 degrees in 4 hours on this brisket. That was through the point. We're at 167 degrees here in the flat, 172 there at the tip of the flat. So we're actually in the thermal stall now, guys. So this is going to be really slow and go from this point. So this is where we got to decide: do we want to wrap it, or do we want to go ahead and let it keep going? I'm okay with this color right here. I'm okay with this color right here. I know that this brisket is not going to get dark like I do when I do salt and pepper, because we are doing a rub that's a little different. So I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this brisket. So we're going to get this wrapped in butcher paper, and I'm going to show you how I do it. All right, guys, so we're going to go ahead and get this brisket off, and you need some good gloves that you can grab your brisket with. And I'm going to be using my Magna Chef gloves here. These are some really good gloves. I'll leave a link down below. Obviously, with all the stuff that I use in my videos, I will put the links down below in the description box, so be sure to take a look. We're going to grab this brisket off. We're going to drain the juice into our catch pan, and we're going to get it wrapped. Okay, so now we're on the paper, and you remember this is going to be our fat cap. When we finish the wrap, we want that fat cap to stay facing up. And that is how I wrap my brisket in the butcher paper, and we'll pop it right back on. Alright, guys, so as you just saw, we just got our brisket off. We got it wrapped. We got it in our butcher paper, and it's back on. Now, one of the things that I wanted to point out right now is we're in that thermal stall. This is where your meat is trying to push out the last of its moisture. Basically, your meat is sweating and it's trying to cool itself, so it's fighting the temperatures, which means you're going to be sitting in this range of 160, 170 degrees for probably 2, 3, possibly 4 hours. So how do you combat that? Well, Texas crutch, you know about wrapping in aluminum foil, or we're wrapping in butcher paper as we're doing. The other thing that I do that I think is key is I raise the pit temperature a little bit, 25-30 degrees. I'm not really measuring it on my Weber kettle, but I'm going to add a little bit more charcoal to it so that we can kick up the temperatures. That helps push you through that thermal stall and basically helps you get through this cook, so you're not sitting out babysitting your pit forever and a day. So let's get some more charcoal on this thing. Let's get the pit temperature up and get the lid on. All right, let's do it. Alright, so it's been about 3 hours since we got our brisket wrapped and put back on our Weber kettle now. That puts us somewhere around 7 hours into this total cook time. And now it's time to break out our thermopin and start poking around. Now again, we're not looking for temperatures, guys. We're actually checking for tenderness. So we're gonna go in, we're gonna slide into the side of this brisket, go to the point, we're gonna go to the flat, and we're just trying to feel what the resistance is like. If we have no resistance, that's what we're looking for. That's when we'll know that our brisket is done. Now the point is gonna cook faster than the flat, so you know you're gonna expect that you're gonna feel no resistance throughout the point a lot faster than you will through the flat. It's okay, it's normal. We'll just keep going, let it keep cooking away on this Weber kettle until we get no resistance in both sides, the point and the flat. So let's get the top popped off and let's go see what our tenderness is looking. All right, let's do it. All right guys, so again, we've got our thermopan. Again, we're not looking for temperatures, we're checking for our tenderness. So I'm going to go in right here through the side, and I'm going to the point first. And the point feels really good. There's hardly any resistance whatsoever in the point. So now I'm going to go to the flat. And the flat has still got a little ways to go. I'm still feeling a little resistance, especially kind of like in this area here. I can still feel it kind of tug a little bit. So we're not quite done. So all we're going to do is just leave the top back on it. We're going to let it continue to cook and let this flat break down. So let's get the top back on. Alright guys, we're at the 8-hour mark and we're going to go ahead and check our tenderness now. We're into the point and there's no resistance whatsoever in the point. We're now going into the flat and there is no resistance in the flat, guys. We're ready to pull this brisket off, so we're going to pull it off and let it rest. Alright guys, our brisket has had time to rest now. I rested it down to about 140 degrees, so we're going to go ahead and get it cut. So let's get this brisket cut. So as I like to do, I find where my point is going to be starting here, and I like to cut that brisket right down the middle here. And so that's what we're going to do. Turn that so you can kind of get a look-see. And there we go. So we're going to put this face down on the board so it doesn't oxidize while we're working with our flat. And we're just going to cut right along here to make some slices, guys. And there we go. And there's our point, guys. So this is looking pretty decent. So let's see if we can get a cut and taste it. Alright, so remember guys, hey, if you enjoy barbecue entertainment videos, make sure you check out a couple of these videos that I have linked right here. And I'm going to see you guys in the next video. Cheers.